Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Looped In with Maritza. My name is Maritza Gertie, National Parents Union Northeast Regional Organizer. I hope that you've had a very good half of the work week or school week or be at home with your family half a week. Um, I'm back home. I was in Florida last week. That's why I was broadcasting from a different location. As I customarily always do, I'm going to begin with sharing some information with all of you. And it'll be a majority of it will be local events that are going to be going on across the city. So I truly hope that you'll be able to attend, be a part of, just check it out and take it from there. Again, I'm part of the National Parents Union. If anyone is interested in becoming a member of the National Parents Union or an organizational member of the National Parents Union, please just go onto our website, which is www.nationalparentsunion.org. It is totally free to become a member, and being a member has its perks. People are able to get a lot more resources and a lot of information. So if you're interested, there is the website address scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. For any information from the National Parents Union, feel free to send us an email to info@npunion.org, and we'll be happy to respond to it. That email is looked at, it is monitored, and we do respond at all times. Family, please stay safe. Wear your masks. A lot of states are now once again mandating the wearing of masks inside locations, gyms, restaurants, any indoor venues. Just be safe, especially if you're around people that you know. You don't know their status. They're not in your immediate bubble of family and friends that you already know what their situation is, whether they are or are not vaccinated. Just keep your masks on, keep everybody safe as long as possible. I'd like to announce it's going to be something called the Ray of Hope Food Drive, Saturday, August 14th, 1300 Rawn Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, from 10 to 12:30. They will be giving food away for approximately 300 families. So if you are able to go to that food drive, if you are a family in need of some food, just make sure you're able to take bags or boxes or a cart, or if you're coming in a car, be able to put the things in your car, and they'll be able to help you and your family for those that you know are in need of some extra food in their home. The National Parents Union will be having our next virtual meetup Thursday, August 12th at 6 p.m. I will be adding the link to this in the chat. Please register. Once registered, you would then get a Zoom invite for the actual link to be able to be part of the conversation for all of you that are interested. There is an organization that is called Private Security Enforcement Association Homeless Outreach Services. They're having a back to school book bag giveaway on August 28th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at D Street in Allegheny. So if you know of anyone that lives in that area that is in need of getting book bags for the children and their families, please direct them to D Street in Allegheny on the 28th from 11 to 1. I believe it'll be first come, first serve. On August 13th and 14th will be the 18th annual Nicetown CDC annual Give Back event. This is an event that is free to the public. It is in Nicetown Park, 4301 Germantown Avenue in Philadelphia. It'll be all-day events for both days. There will actually be a bike ride and peace walk in the morning of Saturday the 14th. There'll be vendors there, food vendors, information vendors, people selling items support the vendors. They're also considered small businesses. There will also be live performances. So it's a day that you can be out there. Hopefully the weather will be nice because it will be happening, rain or shine. Bring your family. Again, socially distanced. Please wear your mask, and everyone should have a good time. I've been to it in the past, and I look forward to being there on the 13th and 14th. Now, for those of you that are looking for something that's fun, the Eco Foundation is sponsoring an event called the Big Old Kids Party. It will be Friday, August 20th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Smith Memorial Playground, 3500 Reservoir Drive in Philadelphia. You can RSVP bigoldkidsparty.com. Now, what's interesting about this is that they will be providing childcare. So you can go with your babies because I'm going to go. I already RSVP'd and I'm riding deep with all four kids. If Mecca also wants to come with me and the three little ones, the Big Old Kids Party. Imagine musical chairs, any horseback riding, bounce house, but it's going to be for us, the adults, the big kids. You're going to be able to do things, play double dutch, jump rope. You're going to be able to do things you did when you were younger around other adults, and it's going to be a good time. There will be food vendors there. I believe admission is free, but you will have the opportunity to buy tickets to be able to get food. So please RSVP Big Old Kids Party, or look up Eco Foundation if you want to ask them any questions about the Big Old Kids Party. But remember, they will be offering childcare, so you can go with your babies. They'll be safe while you're having a good time. They'll also be having a good time. So please reach out and RSVP for that event. Tomorrow, anyone that's in the Philadelphia area, in the area of 19th and Somerset, the 24th Philadelphia Police District will be hosting a block party tomorrow, Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 10 a.m. until the afternoon. There's going to be music, fun, food, games, and it's free. So be out there. You never know. You might see me in a place giving out some information, talking about National Parents Union. And for those that decide to become members, I may be giving them some nice little swag. So tomorrow, August 5th, 10 a.m., 19th in Somerset, is going to be the block party sponsored by the 24th Philadelphia Police District. Now, families, my guest today, I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. We're going to talk about something that a lot of people really do not understand and really do need more information on, to be mindful of, especially with school in some states already starting this week, in other states getting ready to start in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about a very important subject. It is heavy in nature. So I hope that you continue to stay tuned in, ask other people, like and share this so that others can also be a part of the conversation. And if you have any comments or questions during our conversation, please put it in the chat, put it in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer your questions for you. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my guest on. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So please introduce yourself to the folks that, let them know who you are.
My name is Tabatha. I live in Michigan. I am a mom of three, a 14-year-old son, and twin daughters, one in life, Tyranny, 8, and one in death, Liliana, who I lost when she was 3 years old. I lost her when I brought her to school, and a table fell on her while she was playing recess in the gym. And during these past 4 years, I've been working towards yearly school inspections in the state of Michigan, and I have faced a lot of difficulty trying to protect our children and preventing them from suffering from infrastructural disparities in our schools.
Well, first of all, my deepest condolences on the loss of your baby. I can't even imagine losing a child and then losing a child in that manner. And when you and I met during one of the virtual meetups for National Parents Union. Your story really struck a chord with me because you mentioned something that to me it just boggles my mind with the way that these things are not reported and what they're called. You mentioned a non-event.
Never event.
A never event. I'm sorry. I'm going to change that right
Never
now
event.
as I'm talking
Yep.
to you.
Our children who die from predictable ways and preventable ways are classified as never events, which is unfathomably, I can't even describe what it really means to me, especially when there is no classification on what to call a parent when they lose a child. There's no name for it. So how do you have the audacity to call my child a never event while the news stations are calling my child a freak, or what happened to my child a freak accident, when research proves that that is also not the case?
So it's, and I remember you mentioning to me that the only time that it absolutely is reported is when it happens on a school bus
Yes,
because of the because it's. Go ahead, hon.
that's the only time when it is mandatory for it to be reported, and that's solely because of auto insurance. Um, with the research that I've stated or that I've read on multiple different organizations, including the American Journal of Public Journal of Health, CDC, Safe Haven International, National Association of School Nurses, they all say that whether our children die from accidental disease or violence, that there is no nationwide standard that exists reporting these incidences. And as a matter of fact, it only seems that the National Survey Review Centers that do get these reports are from the news stations, not from the schools, not from the law enforcement, not from the state, but from news stations. And those too are also selective. So it
Mm.
begs the question, how many children out there have died or have been injured in the school system for whatever reason?
Yeah, so a child can have fall down and break a limb,
Mm-hmm.
get a deep cut that requires stitches,
Yep.
something that requires hospitalization, and it is at the school leader's discretion if they want to report it to the district, or is it at the district's discretion if they want to report it?
Oh, the districts already know about it. They report to each other, but they're not reporting to national survey statistic programs. Like Michigan, we have a child death review program, and it states that not all children's deaths are reviewed. And I have research going all the way back to the 1990s saying these children are being reported. So now we know which children in Michigan aren't being reviewed or investigated, and also throughout the United States as well.
Wow.
Which
Have
the
you
only
have you
way.
had I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Tabby. Have you had a chance to speak with other parents of or families that experienced their child being injured, or unfortunately a loss of life of a child, and that nothing's happened?
Yeah. Um, I know a friend of mine, Lisa. She lives in Missouri. She contacted me a few years ago when her son died. And there's not many resources for us parents out there. And we've been keeping in touch. And I went to meet her about a year and a half ago. And she also has driven to my house too. And I called her when I found out that our children were classified as never events. And she's livid. She's still livid.
Mm.
Other parents too in California. I've spoken with a family member there who has a nonprofit there as well, the Macy Grace Foundation. Their child died when a piece of playground equipment crushed their daughter.
Mm.
And so they have a nonprofit informing parents on what to look out for in the playground setting, whether at school or even, during city parks or whatnot. And also with the parents up here for Amara's family. I went to go meet her family where she lost her life when a wall partition fell on her. and their family's case was dismissed due to governmental immunity. And a lot of people don't understand that the education system also has governmental immunity too. And they have a foundation where they help families find their new normal after experiencing child loss, just like they have.
So it blows my mind that with all of the potential dangers in and around a school building, that this is not something that is really scrutinized and looked at more intently. Because, as a parent, when we're home, we childproof our house. Depending on the child's age, we make sure that certain things aren't accessible to a child just to make sure we keep them safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is that the same thing happens in the place where your child is most of their life, because they spent most of their life in school. And then we get them after school and in the evening and on the weekends and on holidays and on summer vacation. So school should also be a second home and should be
Yep.
just as safe. And
Yeah, the American Journal of Public Health, stated that our children are no safer in school despite greater supervision. That is an alarming statement. And also in the research here, it states even in the early 1900s, compared to our children's childhood injuries, preventative measures have lagged compared to diseases that were out during those times, like polio, influenza, tuberculosis, now with COVID. And it's one of the single most expensive diseases. They're classifying it as a disease because how widespread it is when it comes to traumas and childhood injuries. Now, with that being said, the CDC stated that our children's death with unintentional injuries are 5 times greater than cancer, 13 times higher than the rate of heart disease, and 31 times higher than the rate for influenza and pneumonia. And unintentional injuries among children ages 1 to 19 years of age accounted for 42% of all potential life loss. That includes adults. Now, with that being said, because we know there is no reporting system counting and analyzing our children's deaths, are those statistics high?
but they're going to be higher. They have to be higher with those kinds of statistics, and in saying that there's a higher propensity for your child to be injured in school than being diagnosed and passing away from a disease like cancer. It's again, it's mind-boggling, and one would think, especially for the people that are working at the school district, the safety and control office or division. I would actually ask that our parents out there who know that their child's school is about to start, why don't you ask for a walkthrough? Ask for a walkthrough of the building. Ask if you can walk around the building as an adult and see if there are any hazards that you may find at your child's school, and then hold the school to making sure that it gets remedied. I mean, I'm not just talking about probably slippery stairs, or a handrail that may be loose that needs to be screwed back in. I'm talking about doors that would shut suddenly, that they're so heavy they could just slam against a child. Chairs and tables that are not in good condition that can collapse.
And the problem is also with our schools. I know in Michigan, our roofs are a problem. In, I want to say 2019, a high school, a 60 by 40-foot section of their roof collapsed into the classrooms below. And the only reason why it wasn't a mass casualty event was because it was on a Sunday.
And see, things like that have to definitely be put up under a spotlight, under a microscope, because that should not be happening, especially with and this is not even the COVID money that's been coming in. School districts have access to millions of dollars every year in their budgets. So not only should it be used in a more intelligent way with regards to curriculum and staff, but they have to make sure that the buildings are safe. I mean, we still in the city of Philadelphia. I know across the country we have old school buildings that are falling apart, like you mentioned. The roof falling in Michigan. I'm quite sure, just like we have to be anybody that's a private homeowner or owns property has to go through inspections.
Mhm.
The schools go through inspections too. And it should be a yearly thing to make sure that these buildings are safe for our children and for the staff that's in the buildings.
Yes, exactly. And while in my process of research, I found 8 children that died because of infrastructural disparities in Michigan so far. So far. And it's really hard to find these kids because if you look and you go into your Google browser and you say child dies at school, boy dies at school, girl dies at school, multiple different variances of what you want to look for, the first couple pages are going to be lawyers. And then tell me why not all 8 of these kids pulled up on my web search. Maybe the most was 3, and it was one article of each one of maybe 3 of them. So there's a problem with our algorithms. I found children that have died from electrocution. I found there's 2 kids in Michigan that died from electrocution. One was Christian. He was at a football game in his middle school. And reports were that the fence was buzzing. And, a kid's not going to think about this. Whether it's a young kid or even a teenager, they're like, oh, it's buzzing, let's touch it. Because that's how kids think. They think they're invincible. And he ended up being electrocuted. And then decades before that, Robert in 1976. And what's interesting about Robert was the reason why I found Robert was because my aunt was electrocuted by the same tool the day prior of his death. And she mentioned something to the schools. They didn't do anything about it. That boy died. Now, if that was my aunt, I would have never known my aunt. I would have never have known my cousins, and I would have never known my cousin's kids. And it stated in those news articles that the prosecutor in Michigan at the time were aware of several school safety hazards throughout the state. So we've known about this for decades. We have been complacent. We have been complicit.
And this is in your state. This is based on the research you've done. So
in my state.
I can and I know that the occurrences and the instances and the needless deaths of children have happened across this country for decades, just as you mentioned.
Yeah. It's boiler explosions, roof collapse. And it's crude to say, but it's almost like it's 1,000 Ways to Die, the education system edition. And it's disturbing to say that, but unless you say something with a little bit of pizzazz, they're just going to walk away because for some odd reason we need that spunky little slogan or something real feel good, real quick to catch our eye. And by doing that, at what point are we considering our children's death and safety and entertainment purposes? Because we're not doing anything about it.
You're absolutely right, because I've noticed, just as I'm listening to you and thinking back, the only time there is a lot of media attention for the passing of a school age child, pre-K through 18 years old, a senior in high school, what I've seen that's been most prevalent, unfortunately, is when it's an athlete. Mm-hmm. It's an athlete, and they may have had a pre-existing medical condition, and they collapsed. Whether it was a soccer field, baseball field, football field, or basketball court, and it's a shame because it happens every couple of years that we see that in this city alone. Where we just had someone pass last month, a young man on the football field, during football practice, getting ready for the new football season. Unfortunately, collapsed.
And imagine that mother finding out that her child's actually classified as a never event because we don't know what could have been prevented. Was the coach working him too hard? Was the school, if he had a condition, was the school monitoring that? And still, even with, diseases or disabilities and our children are dying in our schools, it's still going unreported. So even if the mother or the family has found ways to prevent another kid from dying the same way their child died, it's almost it's and then the I don't know. It's
So Tab,
and it
Tabby,
limits our
what can we do as parents and guardians? What can we do? What steps should we take? I mean, I mentioned earlier, asking if your school would consider letting you go take a tour of the school building and the surrounding areas, the playground, the yard, even the parking lot, if children have to walk across the parking lot.
Mhm.
Do we think, would that be a step towards trying to make
it
sure they're safe?
it would be a step, but you would also, when you do this, if you want to contact OSHA and have the teachers or the staff with you or the custodians, because even if you find something as a parent wrong with the school, there's still nobody you can really call. So you have to actually have somebody who works in the building, then call OSHA to do something about it, because OSHA doesn't answer to the parents and whatnot. They're not looking out for hazards for the kids. They're looking for hazards for the workers. There's
Mm.
nobody looking out for the hazards for the kids. And I found that out about a couple years ago. I know if something does happen, to make sure to report it with the Department of Health and Human Services, report it to, the school boards, their parent meeting boards. And even if you do present those problems with the school boards or the PTAs or your superintendents, be ready to be almost considered a conflict of interest. In my case, I've been working with this for 4 years. I was considered a conflict of interest with the Department of Health and Human Services in Michigan. I would go and do my petitions. I would go to festivals. I would go door to door. I would mail them out and put extra stamps and stuff so they can send their own in. And when I ever met somebody who worked in the Department of Health and Human Services, they told me I can't sign, or they couldn't sign because it was a conflict of interest.
Mm.
And then shortly after that, I tried to get our PTAs involved, and I asked the PTA in my area that I used to live in at the time, and they said I couldn't provide them flyers or anything to distribute to the parents throughout the district, but I can come into the individual PTA of that school and inform them that way. But
Mm.
it still limited my ability to inform the public in that area of what was going on. And then before I testified just recently at the Education Committee in Lansing, a friend of mine, her friend contacted her who was a Michigan school board member, and they gave her screenshots, and they used my daughter as at a seminar, not for training purposes for school board members or what to look out for or who to call if something happens, CPR or this or this and that. They used it for purposes of deterrence for our children's safety. They put understand your authority, liability, learn to identify conflicts of interest, which is crazy to me because our public tax dollars goes to fund our schools. How are those same public tax dollars used against parents and then classify them as conflict of interest when we're trying to actually protect another child? How is that possible? And another thing, with childhood injury and deaths, our children's injuries and deaths is $1 billion industry. Per year, it's about $115 billion in good life loss and hospitalizations in the education system. In the CDC, they said it was over $200 billion for general unintentional injuries. Why is 150? Why is it so disproportionately higher? Where $115 billion was specifically spent on children's good life loss in the education system, where 200 billion was in general. Does that mean there's an extra 115 billion on top of that 200 billion? Or is that 115 billion a part of that 200 billion and only $85 billion is being lost in general cases while $115 are being lost in our education system? Either way, we're still flipping the bill. And then by doing that too, with the conflict of interest with our school boards, how much money are they spending for their public relations liaisons to tell the communities that most schools are safe when there's evidence to disprove that? And the only way we can find out how much money our public schools, publicly relations liaisons are spending is to request the Freedom of Information Act on them. But if we don't know how many children have been injured in the education system, how can we accurately find out how much money our school boards are spending to push these problems underneath the rug? And that goes like, how much more money on top of that $115 billion in good life lost are we spending? So we're already paying for our medical costs, our funerals, everything else in between. Then the schools are now launching political wars on us using our own tax dollars. So we're flipping the bill on both sides. And then we get the finger pointed at us. Like it's our fault. Like, oh, you get what you pay for. Well, let's use that logic. If we get what we pay for, if families were able to pull out their kids in public schools and were able to afford private schools, there wouldn't be enough private schools to accommodate our children. Then people are like, oh, well, I'm glad I homeschool. I'm like, well, I'm great. I'm so glad you're intelligent enough to homeschool. You have the resources to do homeschool, but the education system has failed many people intellectually. Some people aren't comfortable or don't even have the reading comprehension and writing skills to even teach their own children. And then there's some people who use, the schools to be able to go to work. It doesn't make any sense. It's not about you get what you pay for. That's not it. Essentially, we're already paying for it anyway.
So this is why it's very important that this message is heard by as many people as possible, because families, the hope is that families get access to information, just like you mentioned, the Freedom of Information Act. If you're, this is something that you should be able to request and get the information. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about keeping our children safe. It's not about anybody's political gains. Again, it's about keeping our children safe, especially right now. Just as you mentioned, there have been many families that, because they're able to and have the resources to do so, this past year and a half, almost 2 years, have been able to either put their child in a private school or have their child be homeschooled, or they enroll them in cyber school or some kind of education pod. For those that have been able to do that, absolutely wonderful. And I hope that you were able to get as much out of it for your children as you intended. Just as you stated, for many, many years, our current educational system has failed our children. So not only educationally have they been failing our children, they've exposed our children to danger, seen and unseen. Not to mention, the asbestos, the lead, those kinds of things, the poor air quality in our buildings, the mold, the rodents, everything that you would want in your own home that you make sure doesn't grow and fester in your own living space. If you're able to do that, you don't want it to be in a building where your child spends most of their day. So all this money that's coming down the pike, all these folks that are watching right now and listening to you tell your story, make sure that you spread this message. Demand some kind of safety report from your school, because it runs like wildfire. If a child gets hurt during the school day, everybody finds out about it. Just like you said, the minute it happens in the classroom, the school nurse is notified. The assistant principal is notified. The principal is notified. The school secretary is notified. They then have to send an email, make a phone call, or do both to the district office, the safety office of the school district. It's documented somewhere. So, and then depending on the communication in the school with families are then notified. This past school year, Tabby, I don't know if I shared with you, I worked in a school building. I was a school secretary, so I had the experience of being in a school building during the school day, when children were in the building as well. And believe me, if a child came up positive for COVID, we not only had to make sure that the city health department was notified, the health office at the district was notified, all the families in the school had to be notified with in writing, as well as a voicemail blast. So everybody had to be informed. We didn't divulge who it was, of course, for privacy reasons, but everyone was notified that this occurred, so that if they had any question, they had the right to call back and say, listen, I need to know if it was my child's classroom. We were able to, let them know yes or no. And if it was your child's classroom, we let them know, okay, if you're concerned, everyone in that specific classroom had to stay home in quarantine. The teacher as well. So they had the option to learn virtually for those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID, pre-COVID, when things happen, I can honestly say, I don't know if there was ever, I have grown children. I don't know if when they were in school, if someone had a serious injury, unless my child came home to tell me. My daughter, when she was attending school, she is now 16. When she was in grade school, I don't know if a child ever got seriously injured at her school. My little ones, is their first exposure this past school year to this specific school. But I honestly do not know if there was the only way I would have known is because I was the school secretary, that a child got hurt or a child came up positive for COVID, because I was responsible for making sure that those letters got printed up, put in mailboxes, given to teachers to put in children's book bags. So imagine a serious injury. Imagine a catastrophic accident. Not a freak accident. No one's a freak. It's a catastrophe.
It's a predictable and preventable death. And what I would like is for when the media says, "Oh, a freak accident happened at a school," where people are like, "No, this is not a freak accident. This is
Absolutely.
Predictable and preventable death." And then, with people who there's an alarming amount of people who will comment on a post with a news station, but are they informing their legislators of what's going on in there? At the same time, please, if you're going to comment on a news station, write your legislators.
Exactly. Talk to me, Tabby, about what's going on with Liliana's law, please, so people can understand what how invested you are in this situation. Not only because of your loss, but I'm quite sure you have people that have worked with you, have supported you, that haven't experienced the same thing you've experienced, but that empathize with your loss and are there for you. So explain for those that do not understand, what is this law going to be about?
Liliana's law would be yearly school inspections in Michigan. Currently, our schools are inspected once every 2 years. And they're with multiple different agencies, Laura, Department of Health and Services. Maybe the schools will do a little bit of something too, but they don't communicate with each other. And then also, there's no proof that something has been done. When the table that crushed my daughter, that table and many others that were found defected in the investigation with the Department of Health and Human Services, found that multiple tables were faulty, and that the tables were supposed to be removed at least 7 years prior. So Liliana's law would also close that gap too, where you would have to show receipts or the plan of fixing the school, and then show the proof that was actually fixed. Also, if you're in Michigan and if there's not an early learning child care center in your school, There's no way to check your school's inspection records. No, there is no way. So Liliana's Law would also fix that problem too. With the early learning child care centers, you can look online with Laura. In my experience, though, when I was doing my research for my second testimony with the second bill that no longer exists, like I said, this is my third time. They removed 7 years of inspection records off the Lara website. So you also have to be conscientious about the dates of what you're looking for too. You might even have to request the Freedom of Information Act, regardless whether you think that the years add up or not, because we don't know. Another issue that I have too is a friend of mine from high school. Her child was injured, had a lifelong injury. There wasn't enough supervision. He ended up hitting his head on the playground, and now he's disabled. Now, a lot of people, I wasn't even thinking about it too when she brought this up. So say your child survives, you send them back to school, and now your child is disabled. Now the school gets to profit off of that injury because now your child's disabled and the state gives them more money for your child who's disabled, while you're still having to fight for aftercare or learning services, or just the daily struggle of having a disabled child, when all you did was send that child to school, and they're the ones who get to profit off of it when families are struggling. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely does not. And this is why, once again, it's very important for people to ask the questions. There's nothing wrong with asking a question. And if the answer that is given to you doesn't make any sense or doesn't sit right with you, just like Tabby was explaining, you have a right to demand a report or to ask for an inspection. I mean, this cannot keep on happening. Our children have to be kept safe. And if for some reason a child does get injured, that school district has to take responsibility. Not just not just add additional funding to that school because the status has now changed to general education for this student to special education.
Yep.
It shouldn't be a quick money grab as a result, and that would be infuriating for anyone to see that that's happening as far as that's concerned. So where is it? You mentioned that the second time the bill passage was attempted, it didn't happen. So what status is it right now?
Well, unfortunately, so I had my third testimony and we almost had that vote, but unfortunately our superintendents called our politicians, and just like that, the majority of our politicians, whether they were Democrat or Republican, even before that, were giving us such a hard time with our children's safety. Like, oh no, we don't do that here. There's been times where, politicians are like, it was really refreshing that, you know what you talk about, because a lot of people in Lansing don't. Then there's representatives wherever this representative comes from, inspections are a dime a dozen and they don't really mean nothing. And that's quote for quote. That's what he said. And I'm like, what? And then just a couple of weeks later, we see in Florida of the condo collapse in Florida, right? There's condos being inspected, other apartments being inspected. When we see a child die from infrastructural disparities or a health hazard or sports or sexual assaults or whichever, do we close down the schools for training or to make sure the schools are safe? Is there clearing houses? No. It's, oh, you guys get some counselors for a couple of days and good luck for the rest of your life, kids. Business as usual. School starts at 8:20, and
this is why something like this is important, Tabby. The folks that have been watching, thank you so much for watching. Please share this. This is an important topic. School is, like I said earlier in the beginning of the show, schools are getting ready to start. Right now, unfortunately, because of the resurgence of cases of COVID, um, many families are terrified. They're scared about what's going to happen because all the states, mostly all the districts, are saying we're going to have full 5 days, 5 days in sessions for school. No one's, some people are being given an option of remaining 100% virtual, but no one's talking about the safety yet. I mean, not enough conversations are being had about the safety issue. What if a child, unbeknownst to them, has COVID, comes into a classroom and everyone is exposed, and then those
Yep.
children then go home to their families. That teacher goes, or the teacher assistant, or the climate support staff, or any of the adults in the building then end up going home to their families, and unbeknownst to them, um they may or may not be vaccinated. And it's there are a lot of reports coming out now that even if you're vaccinated, you can be a carrier, give it to somebody else. So what's happening here, and I'm not trying to cause anybody to get, cause any mass hysteria, but it's a reality. Things are
Mm-hmm.
happening. A lot of people, unfortunately, have still been very lax. They have not worn a mask. They have not. They don't want to get vaccinated, which is a person's personal choice. I absolutely understand that. But if you know you're going to be in an environment where you're going to be around tender age children, I consider, 3 to 18, you're still young. You're not an adult. You're a child. We have to protect them to then allow us, the adults in the building, to then be able to protect each other. But if
Mm-hmm.
things like infrastructure, buildings crumbling down, old furniture,
Yep.
faulty wiring, like I stated previously, the mold, asbestos, the rodents, the
Lead in the
flies,
pipes, plant
insects,
water.
yeah, the water, everything. All of these things need to be looked at. And the hope is that um, people learn from history so that things will keep on repeating themselves. And my hope is that this does not continue to happen. And for those legislators that are not making sure the bill gets passed, I'm sorry, shame on you, because if it happened to you, you'll be up in arms getting
Yep.
all your peers on the same page. We're going to pass this law. It shouldn't be
Yes.
that way.
And I'm even frustrated and with the politicians that do support though, because I have asked politicians, I'm like, well, and I gave every single education committee member in Lansing their own 510-page research book, complete with pictures, tabs, and petty pointers. Why
Wow.
aren't you telling your constituents about what's going on in your schools, regardless of Liliana's law or not? There are tons of issues we need to touch light on that we are not. Our children are governed with a zero tolerance policy, but when that child dies, it's 100% tolerated.
Mm.
We like so say if our children we expect them to get A's and B's, but with our children's schools infrastructure report card, that's what we would say. It's okay for a D and an E. And it's almost like a damned if you do and doomed if you don't situation. We are mandated for our children to have an education. Obviously, it's important. But a lot of us send our children to school. So if we're scared to send our children to school, we get penalized for it because our children are dying in school. Then at the same time, our schools aren't educating our children what they should be at the levels that they should be educating at. It's and by their logic, and the second time I going off to another subject, sorry. The Department of Health and Human Services admitted that they didn't have the resources or the people or the inspectors to inspect our schools properly for yearly school inspections. They didn't have anybody to do it, which doesn't make any sense because what are you doing with our businesses? Some businesses get inspected once a month. They get surprise inspections. And so using their logic, is our schools even safe to be open in the first place? because they're the ones who are right now essentially inspecting their schools once every 2 years. And they're saying we don't have the people to actually inspect our schools. And we're expected to send them there.
They should really, during this time, uh, especially right now, still on summer break for those states and those cities and those counties and those towns that haven't started school yet. Please take the initiative and walk through your building. You know, uh, walk through the school building, walk through every classroom, every room where children will be, and inspect it, look at it, create a checklist, make sure that things are working properly. I mean, I'm quite sure there are many schools that are doing it, but if you know your neighborhood school is a very old building, demand that it gets done. If you're
Yep.
able to volunteer to walk through the building with the school principal, as parents, say, listen, if you have some time, I'll be happy to meet you to do that. If the concern is, oh, I don't have enough parents to come, do it at a reasonable hour. Do it on a Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
mid-afternoon, mid-morning, so that if it happens to be a working family, but that they're volunteering of their time to come into the school and walk with you with a clipboard and pad in hand, and make notes to help you with that process, so that you as a school leader, as a school admin, can then send a report to your district and say, listen, I walked through my building and I saw the following things that need to be addressed immediately.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to a last minute situation. Don't just leave it to the teachers. They have enough on their plate. The teachers are going to be concerned with walking into a classroom that's clean, that has clean air, that has, proper ventilation. Don't leave it to them to check if the desks are okay, if the chairs are okay, if the door is okay, if the wiring is okay in that room. Work with them, work in conjunction. That's why,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so happy. I'm very proud of the fact that National Parents Union, we're not here to bash schools. We're not here to
Yeah.
bash educators. We're not here to bash districts. But what we are going to do is put you on notice if you're not doing enough to keep our children safe, intellectually and physically and emotionally, because you have in your hands the responsibility of keeping them safe throughout their school day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
families now, Tabby, in urban cities, and I know in Philadelphia we have parents now that are saying that because there's so much violence in the city, parents are scared to even send their children to school, to walk
I
from
believe
their
it.
front door to the school, because there's so much violence going on. They're afraid their child will get injured or killed walking to and from school. So
Yep.
people need to be put on notice. Enough is enough with
Yeah,
regards to
these
our
are
children's
our kids.
safety.
I mean, if our kids are the future, then we need to actually treat them as such. We need to use education in the name of education to fix education.
Absolutely.
And and it's and it's kind of appalling when we have to put it that way, because education is the sole purpose of civilization. It helps with pretty much everything in our day and life. Yet we can't use education to fix education,
Mm.
and it's really it's alarming. It's heartbreaking. I would like to establish, not just yearly school inspections, but a nationwide audit to determine how many children have died in school, and study those deaths from in comparison of how many children have died in school that we know of in comparison to how many children we don't. How many children have died in proportion to how many workers have died on the job. Um, I would also like to try to make support groups for parents and families and children whose children have been victimized in the school system, to be able to comfortably and without fear speak out their traumas, because a lot of families out there, because we know that the education system has governmental immunity, a lot of our families will settle. Well, with that settlement, there's also non-disclosure to disagree or agreements, which means we can't really talk about, some families can't talk about specifics or this and this and that. And we need to kind of break that,
Yes.
because our families do need to heal, and also help families who have taken the extra step, who has the courage to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, knowing about governmental immunity. I want to try to find a way to put this research in there, because right now, with parents who go with litigations with court system, their cases get thrown out because of governmental immunity, or, oh, these types of events don't happen, but they don't have this research. I've talked to politicians, doctors, school officials, lawyers, lobbyists, lots of people. Not a lot of people know that there's no nationwide database, no single source that exists on the planet, exists on this planet, on our own soil, exists with our children's death in the education system. And what about the kids that we do know? How much effort are we really applying with ourselves, trying to fix the problems that we already do know?
Yes.
There's a lot of lacks in that too. A lot of people who, aren't in the same position as our families, who have died or been injured, they're like, oh, well, I'm glad it wasn't my kid. And they carry on. They might ask a couple of questions, but they're not really doing anything. Or, there's so many things that could be done, but we haven't taken that extra initiative to prevent it, because we do know of some cases that, kids have been injured and killed, but what are we really doing anything about it, even with the ones that we do know?
Just like you said, it shouldn't just be a couple of days of grief counseling and maybe, and that's it. It absolutely should not. Tabby, I can talk to you for hours about the subject. I really can. But I only get an hour for my podcast. But if you're willing to continue to talk about this, we can definitely have a part 2. That way, families that have questions, they can interact more. I mean, we've had quite a few folks, and I'm assuming these are folks that know you, Frank, Amalia Santiago, Muriel Mahoney, KJ Reyes, Alfredo Oguero, Chad Felty, Olaf Schroeder, Mary Jo, Kareem Jabbar Weaver, Maria Elena Paniagua, Laura Ma, Roger Taylor, Miss Smith. Hi, Miss Smith. I know Miss Smith from my baby school. All of these folks have been tuning in and listening and agree that it's very important. Your message, you do need support with this. I'm glad that you're a member of National Parents Union. I'm very glad that you're a part of us, and I want you to know that we're going to do as much as we can, because I know that you've spoken with Christina last year and you've spoken with Bernita Bradley. So you've spoken with Carrie Rodriguez. So you have our support in this, and we're going to keep on doing what we have to do to help support you, as we would with any other family or parent or guardian that has a need for something that's very important, which is the safety and education of our children. I want to thank you, honey. I mean, so very much. I hope this was informative for everyone. If anybody wants to reach you, how can they do that, Tabby?
They can find me at Liliana's Law. The picture will be of my daughter in a blue dress, with little blue bunny ears. It'll have a lot of information too. You can message me there. You can message me also my private account, Tabby K. I mean, it's really pretty easy to get a hold of. I do have a Twitter and Instagram. I still haven't figured out how to navigate those. I feel like, my grandma asked me how to work in Windows 98 back in the early 2000s. So,
I can show you. We could do a Zoom call on a later date, and I can show you how I've had to learn myself. So, and I'm older than you, so believe me, it can happen. I can help you out. And trying to navigate between, the Twitter atmosphere and, the Instagram and the Facebook messaging thing. I want to thank you so very much for giving me of your time. I want to thank you also for sharing your story, a very important story. Um, I know that although you've suffered a loss, I want you to try to have some self care for yourself and your kids, because I know you said you've been working hard at this to make this known. The importance of it, it is absolutely important. But please take care of you too. I'm quite sure
Okay.
that your other babies, they want their mom to be okay. And I know that they've been a tremendous, your family and friends have been a tremendous support to you.
They have
Know
been.
that we at National Parent Union also want to continue to help you as well, because this is a very important cause with regards to our children. Um, if you want to stay on in the green room while I make some final announcements, you're welcome to do so. If not, I will talk to you
Okay.
soon. I'll talk to you soon, and I'm just
Okay.
going to give some parting words to our viewers. Okay,
All right.
thank you. Family, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Looped In with Maritza. I know this was a very heavy subject, but it's necessary to at times have these very serious conversations about things that are very important in our children's educational career. Children should feel safe in their schools. They should feel safe in their neighborhoods walking to and from their schools. Their schools should be a clean environment, clean of dirt and mold and lead and asbestos and clean water and good food and working handles and working lights and working internet and working access. Teachers should feel comfortable in being in classrooms for so many hours in a day without worrying about being sick, just like our children as well. So please talk to your school leaders. Ask them, if you're part of a parent group at your school, ask that question before school even starts. Is everything done? Is everything ready? Do you want to have a Saturday where you need some help cleaning up? Gather some parents and say, hey, we want to help clean up the school if there's not enough staff to clean up the school, because we know this past school year, there was a very high turnover rate of custodial staff to even help keep these schools clean. Even with the school buildings being empty, it was still a tremendous amount of work. So every little thing that you can do to try to help your child's second home be safer and more comfortable, do that. Have that conversation. Reach out to that school leader. Don't wait until you walk in there with your child and you find things that you're not happy with. Just be preemptive, be proactive, do things in advance. Don't wait till after the fact. And please, if you see something, don't just come with a complaint. Go with a concern. Communicate with your school leader and your teachers and offer suggestions. Sometimes not everyone knows everything and not everyone is able to handle everything that's coming at them at one time. So we need to be able to communicate effectively with each other in order to get things done. And definitely, as you heard here, the importance of voting and making sure that your voice is heard. And if there are people in power in legislature, those elected officials that help pass those bills, pass those laws, if they're not even going to respect the request, consider it, and help you fight for it, then you have the ability to vote them out and vote somebody in that will get the job done that's necessary. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Please be safe. And I will see everyone next week. Have an enjoyable rest of your week. Thank you very much.